All right, so today's vlog, the topic is grubs in the lawn. How do I confirm them in the spring and what timing actually works? So we'll get into a couple things on some products here in a minute. Spring has a way of making every lawn brown, thin, feel a little bit suspicious, and yeah, rightfully so. You look out the lawn, you see an area that's slow to green up, and the question comes, do I have grubs? And a lot of people just know the term grubs just of, being out there and seeing products. Sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes the spring could get, damage could blamed on grubs and turns out to be totally something else like winter injury, could be pet spots, could be compaction, could be soggy soils or disease. So this is why the first step is not the treatment. It's just confirming what you're actually dealing with first. When grubs really are part of the problem, timing matters. In New Jersey, especially in the Northeast, Rutgers notes that grubs return to the root zone in the spring, feed on a short period in April and May. And spring treatments are generally least effective and rarely justified. And I kind of agree. Grubs really don't do damage in the spring just because the grass is growing so quickly. Usually it's not so much of a problem until fall time. And we're going to go over a little bit of that right here. So, first, not every spring patch is a grub problem. So, before assuming the worst, it helps to remember what early spring lawns are dealing with. A lawn coming out of winter dormancy may have snow mold, salt damage, muddy, compacted areas, winter pet spots, or just general thinning from seasonal stress. So, grub damage can happen, but it's far from the default explanation. In fact, it tends to be more of a factor under usually or unusually warm and dry conditions. So that's why the real question is, could it be grubs and how can I confirm if they're there or not? So let's get a little bit into what they usually look like. So grubs damaged turf by chewing roots near the surface soil or the soil surface. The most serious turf loss usually shows up from late August through October when larger grubs are feeding and they also are dealing with heat and dryness at the same time. So as I just mentioned, in the springtime, symptoms can still appear, but the classic heavy damage is definitely later on in the season. If you are suspecting grubs in the spring, though, a turf that stays thin, weak, often surrounding grass starts to recover. So if everything looks weak, but the surrounding grass is recovering nicely, you could be dealing with grubs in that area. Grass that feels loose because the roots have been eaten back. So basically, the grubs are going to feed on the bottom of the root system and work their way up out of the ground. They are looking for that nutrients and those foods. So they're going to eat on the bottom of the root system, and that's what you'll kind of see. And maybe if you have some extra digging by animals, simply just looking for food. So that's one of the food sources for a lot. How to confirm grubs in the springtime. Pick a suspicious area, cut it with a small test section of the turf, about a square foot or so. Peel back and look in the top few inches of the root zone. While actively feeding grubs, most grubs usually are found within the first 2 inches of the thatch. So in the springtime, they move back up into the root zone. As the soil warms, feeds for several weeks, and then they pupate, and then they go to deeper down in the soil. So while grubs are usually easy to recognize, they are creamy white. They're C-shaped larvae with tan brown head curls in the soil right around the roots. So it's kind of what they look like, and you'll see it in some pictures right here. This is this gentleman peeling back this little 1 square foot of soil. If you only find one or two, it doesn't automatically mean that they are doing damage to your lawn. In fact, there's probably going to be grubs there. The problem is when there's too many in one little square foot, that's when they do the damage. When you see, maybe 12, 15, 20 in one little spot, then you can be rest assured that there is going to be damage in that area. So why spring is a tricky time to treat? This is where a lot of homeowners get tripped up. Yes, grubs can be present in the spring, as I just said, but by that point, they are older, larger, and closer to pupating. That makes it tougher and tough to control than the younger grubs in the season, so which would be more towards the fall time. So that's why the springtime is often better used for diagnostic reasons. Plan for a broad grub treatment. And this basically is going to say if you have a history of grubs, you're definitely going to want to treat now in the springtime. We always treat every year. I think that grubs and grub control, it can affect anyone's lawn. So it's better off to get a preventative treatment down. It's kind of like putting an insurance package on your yard. And trust me, I've seen them do damage. They really wreck things, and they really wreak havoc in the fall time. So, what timing actually works? Preventative timing here. So in this article, they suggest, because this could be written for a homeowner, it could be written for a professional. June, July is when the adult beetles are active and eggs are being laid. Some preventative products can be applied a little bit earlier. And let me stop there because we do apply a little bit earlier on the professional side. Some of the homeowner grade materials are just not going to have enough power in them. So we do recommend, if you're using a homeowner grade product, wait until the June, July period. Any professional is probably going to get started sometime in May. A little bit of a better control, longer season control on that, and you might even end up getting some older ones in the springtime. Preventative treatments make the most sense, especially if you have a history of grubs or an infestation, a low tolerance for damage, or obvious beetle activity in the summer. And you'll see beetles all over the place if you have grubs. I mean, they're going to be everywhere, especially when you're mowing and around the shrubs. What is the curative timing? So, if a sampling shows a meaningful population, which means a lot, you're going to want to get down a curative control sometime in mid August to September. And look, I've seen grubs do damage all the way in October. So, it really depends on the time of the season. Just because you have brown spots in your lawn in August, don't immediately think grubs. Do that test, check them out. If you see grubs right at the surface, then you've got definitely a grub problem. So, why that timing makes sense in New Jersey. So it just goes a little bit into late June for the European chafer or the Oriental beetle, and then early July for the Japanese beetle. Again, professional products, we're going to get going much earlier than this, really in May, sometimes in April. We get really long control. If you're using a homeowner grade product, you're going to want to apply sometime in June and July for best control. So, what to do if you confirm grubs in the spring? If you peel back the turf, you find a meaningful population in the area, and you also find weak roots. It's a classic feeding symptom. Smallest move you can make to separate spring recovery from seasonal timing control. So, in the short term, focus on helping the lawn recover. You might rake out the loose dead grass or the material. You might want to repair the thin area once conditions are right, but you want to make note of exactly where the damage is showing up so you know how to treat that area. All right. A quick word on repeat grubs in lawns. If the same part of the lawn seems to get year after year, that's really useful and meaningful information. A repeat pattern usually means that you should focus future monitoring and prevention on those sections rather than treating everywhere by default. So, if you want to use an IPM approach, which is an integrated pest management approach, and you just want to treat areas that you feel are getting damaged by grubs, I love that idea. Definitely reduce, reuse, and restore where possible. When it comes to the professional side, we do treat everything just because, again, it is an insurance package. Grubs can populate wherever they would like. They kind of just fly around and lay eggs, and then boom, you have grubs affecting your soil. So definitely confirm first, then time it right. Again, we'd rather solve the problem before it's a problem, and not have your lawn get affected by grubs. But if your lawn has a suspicious spring patch, we could totally help you out, whether you think you're dealing with grubs or snow mold or lack of nitrogen. There could be a plethora of problems, not only just a grub control problem right away. So that'll just wrap up this vlog for this time about grubs. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help. Take care.